Chapter 7, Statistics. This is just a brief recap on what was done last week. So in statistics, there are two main areas that are really important. One are averages, which are known as central tendencies, and the other is the spread of data, which is also known as variabilities. What you need to do in your copies, and this is going into your notes copy, I just want to make sure that you have all the important stuff in your notes copy that you need. There are three types of averages that you're going to study in Junior Cert. They are known as the mean, the mode, and the median. Okay, so you're taking this down in your notes copy. Now, for each different one, there are different calculations and maybe no calculation at all for some of them. Just need to find... The mean is an average of numbers where you add up the numbers and divide by the total number of numbers. So I'm just going to write that down. So the mean is equal to the sum of numbers divided by the number of numbers. The mode is the thing that comes up the most frequent. Or most common. And the median is the middle number. What's important for this, for the middle number, is the numbers have to be written from smallest to biggest, have to be ranked or written from smallest to biggest first. Okay, example, if I had 7, 3, 4, 2, and 1, the first thing I'd have to do is write those numbers, rewrite them from smallest to biggest. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. And the easiest way to do this is you cross off the first and the last. Cross off the first and the last, and you can see that the middle number or the median value is 3. For those set of values, there is no mode because there's no one number that comes up more than once. And if I wanted to get the mean of those numbers, I would add up 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 7 and divide by the 5 individual numbers that are there. So those are the calculations for mean, mode, and median. I'm not going to finish there just yet. Okay, so yes, they are the three calculations, but there are different times of when you might be asked to use the mean, mode, and median. And you need to be able to decipher when is the best time to use those. And in your book, on page 149, there is a really important page. Okay, and you might highlight one or two things out of this, or you can put them into your notes copy. It depends on what you prefer. So the mean averages, the mean, the mode, and the median are useful, but depending on the data, so that depends on the information, one is more suitable than the other. And it's important that you choose the right one. So the mode is useful in situations where you want to know, for example, what dress size is the most common or which brand of dog is the most popular. So when you're talking about the mode, you could have it for words or you could have it for numbers. So colours, okay, they would be described in words like brown, blonde, blue, whatever. So if there was a word that came up the most frequently, that would be the best average to use, because with median you need numbers and with mean you need numbers. So for these two, the data needs to be numbers. The mode can be used for numbers or words. And the median has to be used for numbers. Okay. So if you've been given numbers, you can use all three, but it depends on the type of numbers that you've been given. Just going back to page 149. So the mode, it's in situations where you dress size or brand. It's generally words, but you could use it for numbers as well. The mean is most useful for a typical value of the most data in a closed group. So what it's basically saying in that sentence is the mean is best to use when your numbers are close together. So for instance, if I was getting the average age of students in the class, because everyone's age average is possibly between 14 and 16, the easiest thing to do would be add up all the students' numbers or ages and then divide by the total number of people in the class. And that will get a really good average as to what the average is in the class. But you could also use the mode for that, because the most common one is obviously the average. Or you could use the median. So when you rank all the ages from smallest to biggest, you can see what the middle number is. And that will also be the most common, or give you the most common age. So for each different one, you have to discuss, or you have to just go through the information to see which one is best to use. So I'm not sure if you've been introduced to the word outlier, but an outlier is what skews data. So for instance, in your class, there's girls that are 14, there's girls that are 15, there might be a girl that is 16 inside in the class, but in a very odd situation, you might have someone that's 11, and that's a very young age for a second year student. And that student would be known as an outlier because their age is much smaller than what is the general age in the class. Likewise, it would be very odd to have a girl of 17 years of age or even 18 years of age inside in a second year class group. So that would also be an outlier. So if you have ages that are either really small or really big, they affect the data. And if you were to use the mean in calculating the average using outliers, it's going to skew your data. So if you're adding up 11 and 13 and 13 and 13 and 14 and 15, and then you add in the 17, you're not getting a true reflection of the actual average age in the class, because that 11 and 17-year-old are affecting the data. In which case, the most common age in the class or the middle age in the class will be the better ones to use. So it all depends on the type of information you've been given. Okay, but in general, the mean, you use it for numbers. The mode, you can use it for numbers or words, and the median, you use it for numbers. And you use it for numbers to, so the median. If you have outliers, you would use the median to reduce the effect of outliers, because the outliers are going to skew the data. But if you take the middle number, you're not taking into account the 11 or the 17 because they've been crossed off. They'd be the outliers or the numbers on the outside, and you're just taking into account the middle number. Whereas with the mean, you use all the data, which can be a benefit, but if you have outliers, it's not a benefit. Okay, so deciding which average to use comes up a lot in exam questions, and you need to know which average to use and in what situation it is best to do so. Okay, so you looked at calculating the mean, mode and median over the week. You also looked at frequency tables, and this is when it starts to get a little bit trickier. And on Friday, I think you were on page 160, and you did questions 1 to 4, which you've been kind of given 4 sets of data, and you had to calculate the mean, the range, and so on. So that's pretty much where you've been left with. What you have done so far is you haven't done grouped frequency distribution, and that's where I'm going to start off today. Okay, so you've dealt with, for instance, frequency tables where you have to multiply the number by the frequency that it comes up. So 1 by 6, 2 by 9, 3 by 4, 4 by 4, 5 by 4, 6 by 3. That gets you the total amount of people. And then you divide it by the overall frequencies. And that's how you get your average for a frequency table. A grouped frequency table, as you can see, instead of there being one individual value up here, you have a range of values. And that's what makes this one slightly more, not confusing, but a little bit longer to actually solve. So I'm just going to redraw out this frequency table, and I'm going to go through it with you. So at the moment, you've written in your notes copy Chapter 7, statistics. You've done the averages of central tendencies. You've written down mean, mode and median, and you've done the calculations or how you get each of them and when's the best time to use it. The only thing I haven't discussed with you yet is the spread or the variability. The only thing that's inside in this is the range. And the range is the biggest value minus the smallest. And the range is what's left in the middle. Okay, so that's the only thing I haven't really gone over with you. So in your notes copy, that's all you should have. What you're going to do now is you're going to get your normal maths copy and you're just going to take an example of a grouped frequency distribution table into it, and I'll explain how to do it, and I'm going to give you a few questions to do then. So you're going straight to your maths copy. I know I'm putting a line directly underneath mine, but that's it. I'm going to move that up. Okay. So the marks achieved in an exam by the number of students that actually got that. Okay, I'm just recopying out a table from page 154. And this is the example. So there was a group of 1 to 5. 11 students got between 1 and 5. Between 6 and 10 marks, 12 students got between that. 11 and 15, 15 students got between that. 16 to 20, 9 students got that. And then finally 21 to 25, 3 students got that. Okay, and I'm just going to lightly put in the graduations to create the table. You can use a ruler for this if you like. Okay, if this was a normal frequency table, what you do is you'd have one number up here and you'd multiply it by the number of students that got that. So what we want to figure out is what was the average grade achieved between all students. So to do that, I want to change these two values into one number, and I want to get the average of them essentially. So if I want to get the average between 1 and 5 to get the middle number, what you need to do is you're going to add 1 to 5, 1 and 5 together, and you're going to divide it by 2 because there's two numbers there. You're getting the mean of the two numbers. 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So instead of all of that, we're going to use the number 3. What I'm doing here now is getting the mid-interval values. So for a grouped frequency distribution table where you have a range of values, the first thing you need to do is get the mid-interval values, and that's getting the middle number of the two numbers given. Between 1 and 5, the direct middle of that is 3. Some people would be able to just see that, but there is a calculation you can do in order to solve it, and the calculation is just getting the average. 1 plus 5 is 6, divided by 2 is 3. 6 plus 10 is 16, divided by 2 is 8. 11 and 15 is 26, divided by 2 is 13. 16 and 20 is 36, divided by 2 is 18. And finally, 21 and 25 is 46, divided by 2 is 23. So in red, I've gotten the mid-interval values. Now, in order to find the mean or the average, okay, so the average that we were talking about earlier on, normally what you would do is you would sum the numbers and divide by the total number of numbers. But you would have learned last week that for a grouped frequency table or for a normal frequency table, you need to get the sum of the variables and multiply it by the corresponding frequency and then divide by the sum of the frequencies. So it's a little bit longer. So with this in mind, it's going to be 3 by 11 plus 8 by 12, 13 by 15 and so on until we calculate all of the totals together. Okay, so I'm just going to write that out. So what I want to get is the sum of the variables over the sum of the frequency. That's my formula. Sum of the variables over the sum of the frequency. You will need your calculator for this, but it's going to be 3 by 11 plus 8 by 12 plus 13 by 15 plus 18 by 9 plus 23 by 3. And it's going to be divided by this frequency, the sum of the frequency. So that I'm going to add up all of the frequency. 11, that's the total number of students, plus 12, plus 15, plus 9, plus 3. Now, we'll start at the actual calculation now. 3 by 11, you can go to your calculator. It is 33, but just prove it. Is 33. Plus 8 by 12 is 96. 13 by 15 is 195. 18 by 9 is 162. And 23 by 3 is 69. All over, and we can add these numbers. 11 and 12 and 15 and 9 and 3 is 50. Okay, so I've started to eliminate and solve this. So I just need to add up the top numbers now. So that's 33 and 96 and 195 and 162 and 69. That's 555 over 50. And when you divide one into the other, you get 11.1. It is common to get decimal places when you're doing the mean, especially with a frequency distribution table. So don't be worried when you start getting weird numbers as your answer, because that will happen with large tables. Okay, so now that we've looked at a frequency distribution table, I'm going to get you to try do one too, and we can answer questions on it. So you're going to join me live in class shortly, once you've taken down everything. So at the moment, you've done a couple of these normal frequency distribution tables, and we are now going to just go and do one that is a grouped one. So just in class now, you're going to start on question 7 on page 157. It is a little bit tricky because what you're going to have to do is there's 36 students. You're going to have to figure out how many students got between 1 and 20. So you'll have to count them up. Then you'll have to find out how many students are between 21 and 40 and so on. And keep doing it until the table is full. And then you can start getting how many students scored between 21 and 60. What's the mode, the most frequent? That will be the graduation that has the biggest number. Which is the second highest, and what's the disadvantage. But what I'd also like you to do is I'm going to add in another part of that. Calculate the mean mark. Okay, so I want you to get the mean mark that was actually in the test. Okay, you would have tried a couple of these already. I might get you to do one that you mightn't have seen already. And I'll discuss that in class. So at the minute, you are starting question 7 on page 157. You're going to join me live, and if you have any questions based on averages that you've looked at so far, or if anyone's confused, you can let me know. We might even do questions 8 as well, actually. I'm going to highlight that. And yeah, we'll leave it at that for the minute. And when you join me live, if anyone has any questions, you can let me know. So 7 and 8 on page 157. I'm just going to write it down now. So your classwork is page 157, and it's questions 7 and 8. And you can join me live now, and we can talk through anything that you're having difficulty with. And I'll do questions 7 and 8 with you in class now.